Masechet Nedarim, Daf Dalid. We have three main topics. The first two are regarding a braita that we quoted yesterday. The first is a question, how can a Nazir violate do not delay? The second one is going to be about a father nullifying. Why do we need a derasha to learn that in the case of Nazir? And finally, we're going to get back to the Mishnah and talk about abbreviations, and Shmuel has an interesting chidush in that regard. Okay, so to remind ourselves, we saw yesterday that the Baraita learns that Bal Te'acher, which is said regarding Nedarim. If one gives a neder, like he offers an animal, he says, I'm going to bring an animal sacrifice, he cannot delay, he has to bring it within 3 regalim, the 3 major holidays. So that's true regarding all nedarim. And because there is a juxtaposition between neder and nazir, we learned that also a nazir cannot delay. And the question is, how can a nazir possibly delay such that he would violate this law? Because the second he says, Hareni nazir, he is a nazir immediately. And so there's no way to delay being a Nazir. We're going to see 4 answers. We already saw one yesterday, where according to Rava, he says, I will be a Nazir before I die. Because he said that, well, he's not automatically a Nazir immediately, because he doesn't say, I'm a Nazir now. He's putting a time delay. On the other hand, the trigger that he put is that he has to do it before he dies, and he doesn't know when he's going to die, and therefore he has an obligation to start right away. Unlike if he says, I will be a Nazir in an indefinite time, or I'll be a Nazir, after a year from now. In that case, he's not delaying by not doing it now. But if he says, before I die, then he would be violating do not delay if he does not do so. All right, so that was the first answer. We're going to see 3 more answers. One, that he vows in a cemetery, or that he delays not the onset of Nazir, but rather at the end, stopping to be a Nazir by delaying the haircut or by delaying the sacrifices that he needs to bring. Regarding delaying the sacrifices, we're going to wonder, well, you can never delay a sacrifice, so why do you have to tell me that regarding a Nazir? And we're going to have a few answers, 2 successful answers. One, a chidush that you can't volunteer a Nazir Chatat. 2, that a partial vow is like a vow. This one will be rejected. 3, only needs one of the 3 sacrifices. Nazir only has to do one of the 3. And then D, even though we rejected A, we're going to go back to A. All right, so that's what we have before us. And now we begin. Rav Acha bar Yaakov amar kigon de nadar vehu bebet hakebarot. How could you have a case where a Nazir will violate Bal Te'acher, delaying it, if he's already in a cemetery, and while he's in the cemetery, he's in Tum'ah, he says, Hareni Nazir. Well, in that case, the Nazirut is not going, we're going to see a machloket in a second. When he says that, does he become a Nazir immediately while in the cemetery, but automatically is now violating? Or does he not become a Nazir right now, but when he leaves the cemetery and purifies himself, then he'll start the Nazirut? So in this case, he's in the cemetery. He says Hareni Nazir. So we say Hanicha leman damar la chayle ale Nazirut me'altar. So if we say that he does not become a Nazir immediately, well then he's there in the cemetery. He said Hareni Nazir, which means that he can't be a Nazir right then while he's in the cemetery, so he could continue drinking wine over there. But as soon as he gets out and becomes purified, he has an obligation to take upon himself the Nazirut. And if he doesn't, if he delays it, he's violating. Okay, so that is a good answer. According to that opinion, this is machloket in Masechet Nazir between Resh Lakish and Yochanan. Elman damar me'altar chayle ale mi'ika bal te'acher. But according to the other opinion there, that says that he does become a Nazir immediately while he's in the cemetery. Hareni Nazir in the cemetery, he is a Nazir and he's already violating. So in that case, it's true he's violating the laws of Nazir, but he's not delaying becoming a Nazir. So this answer, Rav Acha's answer, wouldn't work. ועוד האמר מור ברב אשר חיילה נזירות עלי מאלתר וכי פליגה לעניין מלכות פליגה. And furthermore, Mor Barav Asher, regarding that machloket in Nazir, actually says that everyone agrees that Rabbi Yochanan and Rashakish, everyone agrees that he does become a Nazir immediately. He's in the cemetery, he says, Hareni Nazir, the Nizirut falls upon him. And the only question is, if he then is drinking wine while there in the cemetery, while still Tameh, does he get Malkut or does he not get Malkut? That's the only question. But actually, he is already a Nazir, and so this whole answer falls away because there's no way for him to delay becoming a Nazir. He's a Nazir immediately. So we answer for him, Afilu hachi kam le bebal te'acher mishum dekam me'acher nezirut tahara. Still he can violate do not delay because he's delaying starting off his proper Nizirut period in a state of purity. So while he's in the cemetery, we got to tell him, go leave the cemetery quickly, right? And so that you can start as soon as possible the full Nizirut observance in purity. And so as long as he's staying in the cemetery and remaining tameh, so he's pushing off the proper observance of the Nizirut, and so this is a good answer. We do accept it, and we add another, now that we know this, yet another variation of it. Amar Rav Asher ho'il v'chen nazir shitim asmo b'mezid ober mishum ba'al ta'ached din zirut tahara. Not only a Nazir in the cemetery, even a regular Nazir, he says, Hareni Nazir, he's pure, he goes after a few days, he causes himself to be tameh on purpose. By doing that, now he's still a Nazir, and he has to go purify and start again, right? If he said, I'm going to be a Nazir, usually it's 30 days. And so if he, in the middle, he after 10 days, he makes himself tameh on purpose, he's going to start all over again. By doing that, by making himself tameh on purpose, he is violating Baal Te'acher. Because even though he's a Nazir already, he's delaying the proper observance of Nizirut in purity. All right, good. So that is the second answer. And now for the third. Rav Acha bered Rav Ika Amar over lebal te'acher tiglachto. So Rav Acha says that when we have this hekesh, just like Baal Te'acher is true in all Nedarim, so true it's true in Nazir. We're not talking about the onset of a Nazir. Yeah, that happens automatically whenever he says so. But rather it's talking about the commandments at the end of a Nazir, he has to bring 3 korbanot, chatat, olah, asham, chatat, olah, shelamim, and he has to also cut his hair. He takes his hair, he burns it in the fire. Okay, so this is if he finishes his days, he finishes the 30 days, but he delays in shaving his head and doing that ritual with his hair. Then he violates Baal Te'acher. That's what it's talking about. Okay, good. And this answer would be true according to either of the following 2 opinions. There's one opinion that says taking that shaving is required in order for a Nazir to become a regular person again, right? He has to continue all the observances of Nazirut. He can't drink wine. He can't become tameh until he shaves. So then, for sure, he would violate do not delay because he finishes 30 days. So now he has to do the ending rituals, which are required. But even according to the other opinion that says it's not ma'akevet, meaning after the 30 days, that's it. The obligations are done. He can now drink wine, even if he doesn't shave. But nevertheless, he still has a mitzvah to do the shaving ritual, even though he can start drinking wine immediately. So even so, since it's a mitzvah, if he delays doing it, it still violates Baal Te'acher. So that is a good answer. We accept it. But we have yet another one. He has to bring those 3 korbanot. If he delays bringing them, presumably the shalosh regalim, and like other korbanot, then he violates this Baal Te'acher, and that's why we need the hekesh from Neder to Nazir for his korbanot. Okay, we ask about this. Umin hacha nafkale, mehatam nafkale, ki darosh yidreshenu, elu chataot v'ashamot. Wait, why would we need a special hekesh to learn this regarding the korbanot of a nazir? We can derive it from the pasuk in Nedarim. Here's the pasuk in Nedarim that teaches us that regarding all required sacrifices, you have to bring them right away. Pasuk says, "Kitidor neder Adonai Elohecha lo te'achel Shelemah, ki darosh yidreshenu Adonai Elohecha meimach v'yabecha chet." This is the drasha that we learn many things from this pasuk, from each phrase, even though it says "Kitidor neder," which sounds like it's a voluntary offering. From these words, darosh yidreshenu, right, that it will be required of you. That we learn that this is talking about required sacrifices, that you have to lo ta'acher, do not delay. You have to bring them in a timely manner. So therefore, we already would know that a Nazir has to bring his sacrifices in a timely manner. Why would I need this? Why would I need to learn it from Neder? That's the question to Mourad. And so we answer, because the laws of a Nazir are a chidush. There's something novel about his korban, and because of that novel thing, I would think, well, maybe it's different, and while other sacrifices I can't delay, maybe a Nazir is exempt from that obligation and he can delay because it's different in some other fact. That's going to be the answer. It doesn't explain here what is the chidush, my chidush. Okay, so just to review where we are, we just brought the 4 explanations of how a Nazir could possibly violate do not delay. We're within the last one, and we said it's a chidush, but we're not sure what the chidush is. So now we're going to offer a few possibilities about what is novel about the sacrifice of a Nazir that I might think that the Devarim, general prohibition, would not apply to a Nazir, and that's why I would need the special derivation from Neder to Nazir. Okay, so my chidush, here's number 1. Ilema delamat pisle lechatat Nazir beneder. So maybe I'll think as follows. It's impossible to volunteer a korban of a Nazir. If I say, I'm not going to be a Nazir, but I want to bring the chatat that a Nazir brings, right? I want to obligate myself to a sacrifice similar to a chatat. It's matpis, a hatpasa, right? I can, in other cases, I can obligate myself this item just like, some other item. But here, the hatpasa doesn't work. The only way to be able to bring a chatat of a Nazir is actually to become a Nazir, finish your term, and then you can bring a chatat Nazir. So that's a chidush, and so I might think because I'm unable, only a Nazir can bring a chatat Nazir, and no one else can volunteer to bring it. So I might think, that's a different halacha here, and that because of this difference, maybe there's also another difference that you can delay a chatat Nazir. But this is not a good answer because harei chatat cheleb shen matpisa beneder ve'ober bal te'acher. But the same actually is true regarding a chatat if one eats cheleb. Cheleb is a prototypical example. The same would apply to any of the sins that if you do it by mistake, you have to bring chatat. If you do it on purpose, it would be karet. That you cannot volunteer to bring a hatat halib either, because that is for a specific sin. The only way you can bring this hatat is you actually have to sin by mistake, which I guess is kind of hard to do because you can't purposely sin by mistake. But the only way to bring it would be if you sin by mistake, then you bring this chatat. There's no way to volunteer to bring a chatat chelib, and yet that one does the prohibition of not delaying does apply. So this is really not novel. Okay, we're going to come back to this answer and we will revive it, but for now it's rejected. Ela mai chidushe sakadatecha min ha'il ve'im amar hareni nazir afilu min chasan have nazir lakol. The chidush is that when one takes upon himself a nazir, there's a special law that if someone says, I will be a nazir from the grapes, from grape seeds. He says, I'm not going to be a Nazir for everything, right? I am not going to, only a Nazir regarding that I will stay away from that which derives from grapes. Now, does that work? The answer is yes. He is a Nazir, and he's a full Nazir. He also can't become Tameh, and all the other, can't cut his hair, all the prohibitions. So this is a chidush, that even though you only made a partial vow, it effectuates a full vow. So maybe I would say, since this is a novelty regarding Nazir in the way that one brings it, I might think, one way one starts it off, I might think that so too the sacrifice can be delayed, because look, this is different than other sacrifices, other obligations that one takes upon oneself. And so therefore, I might think that I can delay a Nazir, and therefore I need this Hekesh to teach me not so, Kamash Malan. Okay, let's see. Does this work? Well, let's see. First of all, this is only going to work according to the opinion that says, if you take upon yourself a partial Nazirut vow, I'll be Nazir just from grapes, then he is a Nazir, and nevertheless for everything. Yeah, then that would work. But Rabbi Shimon says that if a person says, I am a Nazir from things that only from things that regarding grapes, but not the other laws, then he is not a Nazir at all. It does not work. So then that would not. So it's not a chidush. Nazir is not a novelty. And furthermore, even according to this first opinion that says he does become a Nazir for everything, this novelty is a novelty for stringency. This is, if anything, right, this shows that Nazir is more stringent than other obligations. Other obligations, if I say, I'm only going to be partially obligated, I'm only partially obligated. Here, Nazir is more stringent. And if I say I'm only partially obligated, I'm actually fully obligated. So if anything, this is more stringent. And therefore, kavachomer, if in other sacrifices I can't delay, all the more so in Nazir I can't delay. And so I don't need a special hekesh to teach me that, because this novelty is actually a chumrah. So this is rejected. Then we have a third answer. Ela mai chidushe tesaka de'atech amina ho'il ve'im gileach alachat misheloshtan yasa lo la'abor ale be'bal te'acher kamashma lan. So the chidush of Nazir is that if I shaved and I only brought one of the three sacrifices, right? I don't have to bring all three of them in order to stop being a Nazir. If I just bring one of them, that's enough. And so this is a kula regarding the Nazir. So since I don't have to bring all three, really only one's necessary, I might think that this is a novelty, and the Nazir has another. Therefore, Nazir would have another leniency that I can delay it, and that's why I need the Hekesh, and I cannot learn it from the law of Devarim. Okay, good. So this is a satisfactory answer. And so while we do have one satisfactory answer, we rejected A and B, we do have C, but now we're going to look back and say actually A is a possibility. In fact, the novelty of the Nazir is that I cannot volunteer to bring a korban hatat of a Nazir. So this is a kula in the sense that it's more limited and cannot be taken on upon oneself. So I might think, therefore, that also I can delay it. And now we challenged that. And so you asked, wait, what about the chatat chelib? Because that also a person cannot volunteer to bring a chatat chelib, and yet there you are prohibited from delaying. So chatat chelib katya lechapara, chatat nazir lemayatya. No, but that's for a different reason. Chatat chelib, I need someone who makes a sin by mistake has to bring this chatat for atonement. So that's why he can't delay it, because he needs the atonement in a timely manner. But a Nazir, he didn't do anything wrong. He didn't make a sin. So I might think that he can delay it. All right. Now, this seems to contradict the well-known idea that a Nazir brings a chatat because he abstained from that which is permitted to him. That itself is a sin. that is a true idea that's expressed, but we'll see that coming up later. But that's not actually a sin. You're not actually violating, a commandment by not by abstaining. Right? That's an important idea, but it's not the same as actually violating a sin like eating chelib, and so he doesn't require atonement in that same sense. So that therefore this is therefore it is a good chidush. The chidush of the nazir is that person cannot volunteer himself to become a nazir, and while that's true also for chelib, chatat chelib, but chatat chelib he cannot delay because he needs atonement, and nazir does not require atonement. Okay, and that's why I might have thought that he can delay. One last question regarding this. Hold on. A woman who gives birth also brings a korban hatat, and she didn't do anything wrong. She's doing a wonderful mitzvah by having a child, and yet she cannot delay it. She has to bring it in a timely manner. So we can learn from chatat yoledet that just because it doesn't a chatat does not actually effectuate atonement for anything, still doesn't mean that you can delay it. And so to with nazir, even though he didn't sin, even though he didn't sin, still he cannot delay. So can't we cancel this out? A challenge from yoledet? And the answer is no. Yoledet is also different. When a yoledet brings a korban chatat, from that point on, she can start eating consecrated food, kodashim. Before she brings that korban chatat, she cannot eat it. So that's why she cannot delay, because it's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah for her to eat kodashim that are relevant to her, and therefore she can't delay it, because otherwise she can't fulfill that mitzvah of eating kodashim. Whereas that's not true for a nazir. So for a nazir, there's really no reason for him not to delay, and that's why I might think that yes, regarding all these other sacrifices, it would be prohibited to delay. But for a nazir, those things do not apply. Nazir is chidush, and these reasons do not apply. So therefore, I might have thought a nazir can delay. That's why I need the special derasha to teach me that a nazir, in fact, also is not allowed to delay bringing his sacrifice. Okay, very good. Now, in that Baraita, we also compared Neder and Nazir for another law. Amar Mor, Uman Nedarim ha'ab mefer nidre bito, ubal mefer nidre ishto, af nizirut ha'ab mefer nizirut bito, ubal mefer nizirut ishto. So we said, just like regarding a Neder, if a young girl, makes a vow, the father can nullify it, and so too a married woman, a husband can nullify his wife's vow, and we know that from Neder. We're using the Sekesh. We're going to transfer that law over to Nazir, and the father, if a girl says I'm going to be a Nazir, the father can undo it, and so too a husband can undo his wife's vow to become a Nazir. Good. Now here's the question. Lama li hekesha tete b'mamasinu minedarim. Why do I need a hekesh? The fact that these words are next to each other in the pasuk, and so now I'm opening a channel, deriving one from the other. Hekesh is one type of derivation. Why not use a more general derivation called memasinu? Just as we find, memasinu is like you find one law that's a prototype. So then, if it's logical to apply that to all other similar laws, then you just apply it. So this is a much broader type of derasha. And so we say, why do we need the special hekesh? I could just say, as a mematzinu, just like in a neder regarding nedarim, father or husband can undo it. And so nazir, this is a type of obligation, a vow, and therefore it should be the same. There's no reason to think it would not be the same. I don't need the special hekesh derasha. And the answer is, Dilma gaben nedarim hu mefer mishum tada'it lekisuta. Aval gaben nezirut te'it lekisuta. Tistam nezirut shel shim yom emala kamash malan. So actually there is a reason not to apply general neder to a nazir. A general neder has no end. If someone says, I refuse any benefit from you. So if you just say it that way, it means forever, right? That person can never have any benefit from the other person, right? I am prohibited. Anything you have is prohibited to me. that would be forever. So because it's forever, this says serious consequences. In that case, the father or husband is able to undo it because, if she says things that could ruin the family, ruin the marriage. If she says to her husband, right, I'll never have any benefit from you, that's it, their marriage is over. So in that case, yeah, it's really important for the husband to have the ability to undo it. But regarding a Nazir, which has a limit, because usually if someone just says Hareni Nazir, standard amount is 30 days, and we can make it longer, whatever he says. But so there, since it has a limit, even though if the husband does not want his wife to be a Nazir, it'll be annoying. They won't be able to go out for drinks, right? If he wants to. But nevertheless, it's only for 30 days. So it's not going to be the end of the world. It's not going to be the end of the marriage. They'll figure it out. So you might think it's not as important to give the right to a husband or a father to undo a Nazirut because it's only it's time limited. And that's why we do need the Hekesh. The Mematzinu would not be sufficient. Okay, good. So that ends that topic. A father nullifying. And now we're going to go back to the topic of abbreviations, which the Mishnah mentioned, and Shemuel's going to have a chidush here. So let's see what Shemuel says. Ha'omed lechaveru mudad ani v'chule, amar Shemuel, b'chulan ad sheyomar she'ani ochel lecha, she'ani to'em lecha. So Shemuel says, regarding all these examples in the Mishnah, the vow is only takes effect if he also says that which I will eat from you, or that which I will taste of yours. So let's see what he's talking about. Here's the language of the Mishnah. Again, I'm quoting. Someone says to his friend, I'm avowed from you, I'm separated from you, I'm distanced from you. So that's the first set of 3 items. So the Shemuel seems to be saying that these 3 formulas are not sufficient by themselves. If you just said, I'm separated from you, what does that mean? Separated from you for what? He doesn't say, it's not enough to effectuate a vow. He has to also say, I'm separated from you, she'ani ochelach. In other words, this list in the Mishnah is not 5 separate items, but rather it's 3 and 2, and you have to combine one of the first 3 with one of the second 2 in order to make a vow. That's how Shemuel seems to be reading this. Okay, so you have to have a combination. Just saying that one of the mudarani is not enough. You have to say mudarani she'ani ochelach or mudarani she'ani to'em lach. All right, that seems to be what Shemuel is saying. We are going to reject it and reinterpret Shemuel. We're going to reject it based on the following 2 baraitot. Baraita number 1. Me'tibe, mudarani memecha, mufreshani memecha, meluchakani memecha, hareze asur. Shani ochel lecha, shani to'em lecha, hareze asur. You see, in this baraita, it has the first 3, same as in the Mishnah, but it interrupts it with these are prohibited, and then it brings the other 2 and says these are prohibited. So you see, in the Mishnah, in this baraita, unlike in the Mishnah, since it interrupts after the first 3 and says these are prohibited, that shows that the first 3 are prohibited by themselves. If I just say, I'm avowed from you, I'm separated from you, I'm distanced from you, that by itself, it creates a prohibition, right? How else can you read this baraita? So this seems to be a challenge to Shemuel, who thinks that these first 3 formulas are not enough by themselves. So we answer, Hachikatani shani olecha lecha, shani to'em lecha. All right, we're just going to add a few words of explanation into the baraita, that I say the first 3, hareze asur. It's true, these first 3 formulas are prohibited. When is that true? We're qualifying. When are they prohibited? Only if one adds to it one of these 2 formulas. You have to say mufreshani memecha shani ochel lecha. All right, so we can resolve this baraita according to Shemuel. But what are you going to do with the second baraita? The second baraita is the same as the first, except the order is flipped around. It brings the 2 and then the 3. V'atanya ipecha shani ochel lecha shani to'em lecha asur. Mudrani memecha, mefreshani memecha, menuchakani memecha, hareze asur. So now brought the first two. Fine. If I said whatever is I eat from you is prohibited, fine, that's prohibited. But now is a second list, and it sounds like if I just say I'm avowed from you, then that's sufficient, right? You can't put a Nedarim Amorim in the middle here. So the answer is Taneh Hachi Uchvad Amar Mudrani. We have to understand it as follows. When is it true that the vow will apply if I say, Shani ochelach, whatever I eat from you, only if I also already said, Mudrani memecha. You have to, it's a bit of a strange way to present the law, but I guess it's a possible reading, right? If I say that which I eat from you, then that will be prohibited as long as I had already said before that, Mudrani memecha. I am vowed from you from that which I will eat from you. Okay, so that's the second answer, but we reject it. That's the answer to the second braita. We reject it. Ihachi hainu resha. First of all, this is the same law as the resha. Now, resha here doesn't mean it's a continuation of a braita. These are two different alternate braitot. The fact that two braitot teach the same thing is entirely possible. There's no problem of two braitot teaching the same thing, right? The same laws often were repeated and taught in different formulations. The challenge of the question here seems to be that if you really meant to teach the very same law, well, then you should have used the format of the first baraita, which is relatively much clearer than the second baraita. So no one would formulate it in the second way if what they meant is what Shemuel said, which is much more clearly expressed in the first baraita. So that's one problem. Ve'od asur lamale lemitneh. And furthermore, why would you repeat asur after the first couple and then again asur after the next three if really what you mean is that you need a combination of both? And so this is a challenge to this and the first baraita as well. So therefore, based on these two braitot that we really cannot reconcile, we're going to re-explain what Shemuel must have meant. Ela ma Shemuel Tamad amar shani ochel lecha, shani toem lecha, hu de'asur v'chabero mutar. What Shemuel meant to say, said is that if a person says, that which I eat from you, that which I taste from you, and he said just that, then the prohibition only goes one way. The person that said it will be prohibited to take food from his friend, but not the other way around. That friend will be able to benefit from the person who made the vow, because that's the language, it only says it one way. Aval amar mudrani hemach lechudeh shenehen asurin. But if he said, I'm avowed from you, the other three formulas, I am far from you, in that case it goes both ways. The vow, or whatever, if I said I'm distanced from you, then I am prohibited from you, and you are also prohibited from having any benefit from me, because that's what the language means. I am far from you, I'm avowed from you, I want to have nothing to do with you, and that means both ways. I don't want you to have anything to do with me. And this understanding of Shemuel is supported by a statement of Rabbi Yosef, son of Rabbi Chanina, who also said, I'm avowed from you. That effectuates a prohibition both ways. All right, we'll have more to say about this, another challenge to this understanding on the next daf. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen ve'amen.